First Maccabees, chapter 9. Now Demetrius got word that Nicanor and his men had fallen in battle. So he authorized Bacchides and Alcimus to go a second time into the land of Judah and take the right-hand flank of the army with them. Thus they traveled the highway into Gilgal and camped at Mesaloth in Arbela. They captured it, and many people died. Then in the first month of the 152nd year, they encamped opposite Jerusalem. But they departed there and went to Berea, 20,000 foot soldiers and 2,000 cavalry with them. Now Judas set up camp in Elasa, and 3,000 chosen men accompanied him. When they saw how large the number of the enemy forces was, they were very afraid, and many sneaked out of the camp. Just 800 men remained among them. When Judas realized his troops had run away and the battle was pressing upon him, he was greatly discouraged and had no time to rally them. Though weary, he said to those who remained, "Let us arise and move out against our enemies. We may yet be able to fight them." But they kept trying to turn him back, saying, "We are not able. Let us rather save our lives now. Let us return with our brothers and fight against them later, for we are too few." But Judas answered, "May it be far from us to do such a thing, to run away from them. If our time has come to die, then let us die courageously, for the sake of our people. We will not leave behind a charge against our honor." Then the forces of Bacchides moved out from the camp in formation and stood to encounter them. The mounted troops were divided into two parts, and the sling throwers and the archers advanced before the army, along with all the chief warriors. Bacchides was on the right flank. Then the phalanx drew near between the companies on both sides and sounded their trumpets. The army of Judas also blew its trumpets. The ground shook by the clamor of the troops, and the battle raged on from morning until nightfall. Judas realized that Bacchides had the strength of his forces on the right flank, so all the stout-hearted men came together with Judas. They demolished the right flank and pursued Bacchides' men all the way to Mount Azotus. When those on the left flank saw that the right flank was broken, they reversed course and followed closely behind the army of Judas. The battle was fierce, and many men on both sides suffered wounds and fell. Judas also fell, and his men fled. Jonathan and Simon took Judas, their brother, and buried him in the tomb of his fathers in Modin. They wept for him, and all Israel mourned him with great lamentation for many days, saying, "How the mighty is fallen, Israel's Savior." Now the abundant acts of Judas, his wars, the brave things he did, and his greatness are not recorded, for there were far too many. After Judas's death, the lawless emerged in all the regions of Israel, and all those rose up who worked evil. In those days there was a very great famine, and the nation deserted with the evildoers to Bacchides. He chose godless men and appointed them lords of the country. These men sought out and searched for the allies of Judas, bringing them to Bacchides. He took vengeance on them and mocked them. There was great perplexity in Israel, such as not been seen since the days when the prophets ceased to be seen in their midst. Then all of Judas's friends came together and spoke to Jonathan. "Since your brother Judas died, a man like him has not come out to take on our enemies, namely Bacchides and those from our country who hate us. Therefore we have now chosen you this day to replace him as our ruler and be our leader in battle." So Jonathan accepted the command at once and rose up in the place of Judas his brother. When Bacchides heard this, he sought to kill him. But Jonathan, Simon his brother, and everyone with him knew of this and they escaped to the desert of Tekoa and camped near the waters of the pool of Asphar. Bacchides discovered this on the Sabbath, and he and his army all crossed over the Jordan. So Jonathan sent John, his brother, as leader of the people, and he begged his Nabatean friends for approval to store their huge amount of baggage with them. But the sons of Jambri from Medeba came out and seized John and left with everything he had. After these things happened, they told Jonathan and his brother Simon, saying, "The sons of Jambri are holding a great marriage feast, and they are bringing the bride from Nadabath, a daughter of one of the great noblemen of Canaan, with a huge convoy." They remembered the blood of John their brother, and went up and hid under the cover of the mountain. They raised their eyes and looked, and behold, there was a noisy crowd coming with much baggage. The bridegroom also came forth with his friends and brothers to meet them with tambourines, the musicians, and many weapons. Jonathan's men rose up against them from an ambush and killed them. Many of the wounded also fell, and the rest fled to the mountain. So they took all their spoils. The wedding was changed to mourning, and the sound of the musicians became like a dirge. Thus they avenged their brother's blood and returned to the low ground of the Jordan. Bacchides then heard of this and arrived with a large army on the Sabbath at the banks of the Jordan. So Jonathan said to those with him, "Let us stand and fight for our lives, for today is not as yesterday or the day before. Behold, the battle is before us and behind us. The water of the Jordan is on this side and that, and the low ground and thicket is not the place to turn aside. Now, therefore, cry out to heaven that you may be saved from the hand of our adversaries." So the battle was joined, and Jonathan reached out his hand to strike Bacchides, who ducked aside and went behind him. Then Jonathan and his forces jumped into the Jordan River, swimming to the other side. Bacchides and his army did not cross over the Jordan to strike them. About 1,000 of Bacchides' soldiers fell on that day. Bacchides then returned to Jerusalem and built fortified cities in Judea. The fortresses were in Jericho and in Emmaus, Beth-horon, Bethel, Timnath, Pherathon, and Tephon, all with high walls, gates, and bars. He also placed a guard in them, and they were hostile to Israel. Then he strengthened the cities of Beth-zur and Gazara and the citadel, and placed armies in them with stores of provisions. He also seized the sons of the rulers of the area, holding them hostage under armed guards at the citadel in Jerusalem. Then in the 153rd year, in the second month, Alcimus issued the command to take down the wall of the inner court of the sanctuary. Then he took down the work of the prophets and started to destroy it. At that instant, Alcimus was stricken. His mischief was thwarted, his mouth was shut up, and he became paralyzed. He could not even speak a word so as to give orders concerning his property. So Alcimus died then and there in great pain. When Bacchides saw that Alcimus had died, he returned to King Demetrius. Thus the land of Judah was peaceful for 2 years. Soon all the lawless men deliberated among themselves, saying, "Behold, Jonathan and those with him are living in peace and certitude. Now, therefore, let us bring Bacchides back here, and he will seize them all in one night." So they went and conversed with him. And he departed to come with a large army, secretly sending letters to all his allies in Judea, telling them to capture Jonathan and those with him. But they could not do so, because their plot had been discovered. So Jonathan and his men caught about 50 of their countrymen, who were the leaders of the agitation, and killed them. Then Jonathan, Simon, and those with them departed from Bethbasi in the desert and rebuilt the outpost that had been destroyed and strengthened it. When Bacchides heard of this, he gathered all his army and sent orders to the men of Judea. Then he arrived and camped at Bethbasi and attacked it for many days, making engines of war. But Jonathan left Simon his brother in the city and headed out into the country with a handful of men. He struck Odamerah and his brothers and the sons of Phesiron inside their tents. Then he launched his attack and entered into battle with his armies. Meanwhile, Simon and those with him came out of the city and set on fire the engines of war. Once they took the offensive against Bacchides, he was crushed by them. They upset him greatly because his plan of attack was in vain. Also, he was filled with rage at his advisers, the lawless men who urged him to come into the country. So he killed many of them and then decided to return home. When Jonathan learned of these events, he sent envoys to make peace with Bacchides and to obtain freedom for the captives. Bacchides accepted the proposal and swore to Jonathan he would not harm him all the days of his life. He returned him the hostages taken earlier from the land of Judah. Then he returned to his homeland and made no further attempt to come into their country. Thus the sword was laid down in Israel. Then Jonathan settled in Michmash, where he began to judge the people and to destroy the ungodly men of Israel.